It's no small task bringing a series born in one century into another, but that's exactly what Dominic Martell has accomplished. His series of Pascual March thrillers makes its 21st century debut with Kill Chain. In this fourth series installment, the author brings his repentant and reluctant protagonist, Pascual March, polyglot former terrorist and international fugitive, out of his pre-internet origins and into the dangerous new world of cybercrime, cryptocurrency, and omnipresent electronic surveillance. In Kill Chain, author Dominic Martell successfully transmutes his creation from its post-Cold War inception, between the fall of the wall and the fall of the towers, to a new digitized threatscape unlimited to any physical battlefield. It's my honor and pleasure to reintroduce Dominic Martell.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here and talk to people about the resurrection of Pascual.
Okay. So jumping right in here, can you tell us a bit about how Pascual March's resurrection actually came to be?
Okay, well, the resurrection was actually your idea. I had always liked those first three Pascual books and wanted to do more with Pascual, but there didn't seem to be a tremendous amount of demand. So I had other ideas, but I sort of put them to sleep for a few years and went back to writing as Sam Reeves. And then when you got in touch with my agent and asked if Dominic Martell would be interested in reviving the series, I said, yes, of course I would. And so thanks to you for resurrecting the series. And really, you're the one that brought Pascual back in or into the 21st century because you had the vision for Pascual and this brave new world of cybercrime, cybersecurity, and cyber warfare, which I'm not sure I would have had Pascual going in that direction. So thanks to you for making me push the envelope and broaden my horizons a little bit. You gave me a premise and I ran with it. I had to do a lot of homework first, but it turned out to be a good thing because I learned a lot. Pascual learned a lot, and here we are with Kill Chain. It's a novel about cybercrime, money laundering, cryptocurrency, and the whole brave new world of post 9/11 crime and terror that we live in now.
Well, since you and I know a little bit about the process of the resurrection and the challenges we have to face, for sake of your viewers and your readers right now, can you describe some of the challenges in modifying and adapting a 20-year-old series to the present day?
Yeah, well, the first thing I had to do was go back and reread them because it had been a while since certainly since I wrote them, and I'm not sure I had reread them all really since they came out. So I went back and in the space of a few days, reread them all, refreshed not only my memory of characters and events, but my memory of the voice. The voice of the Pascual books is very different from the voice of the other books I've written, and I purposely wrote them in a style, a tone that I had not used with my other books. So I had to refresh all of that. And then, of course, I had to update the whole concept. As you pointed out in our first extensive telephone conversation after we agreed to restart the series, the world's a very different place now. When I wrote the first three Pascual books back in the 90s, the world was dealing with the fallout of the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the mutation of some of the 1980s terror groups into organized crime groups. The way, and there's always been a gray area or an area of interaction between terrorism and organized crime, because the cast of characters, the people are the same. Thugs will be thugs, and thugs are always delighted to find something that allows them to be thugs with justification, whether it's making a whole lot of money, getting the respect that you get as a member of an organized crime gang, or whether it is killing infidels or furthering the goals of the Marxist-Leninist state by killing people of a certain nationality. Thugs will be thugs, and thugs like to find something that justifies their thuggery. So terrorism mutated into organized crime, and the world of the 1990s was all about that, really. At least the background of the first three Pascual books was all about that. Now, we have the same human condition 20 years later, post 9/11, but the terrorist landscape is completely different. The old, Soviet-sponsored Cold War terrorism is gone. The terrorism that we live with now is Islamist terrorism, principally. At least that's the most spectacular or eye-catching variety. But we still have organized crime, but organized crime has taken new forms. And now with everything online, the continuing multiplying ways in which our lives are online, the multiplying vulnerabilities that we have, that's a very interesting space for organized crime to be in, and for warfare to be in. So again, there's this whole nexus of terrorism, crime, warfare, and security. And so much of it now takes place in the virtual realm, in the cyber realm. So that's the direction that you asked if I could take Pascual. And after a few months of study and trying to get up to speed with the whole thing, that's the direction I took him in. And that was the big challenge for me. I'm not really a technophobe, but I am a late adopter. I tend to adopt a technology once everybody in Africa has it. Then I figure it's time for me to get it. So I was a little bit slow in coming into the cyber world, but I've brought myself up to speed in a number of ways, and was able to shove Pascual into that world. And Pascual has always been, to an extent, a representation of my own persona. So Pascual is also a bit of a technophobe, having to get up to speed on all this stuff under tremendous pressure. And that also is what Kilchin is about. Pascual is suddenly faced with this antagonist, or a series of antagonists, who have absolutely captured his phone, his computer, all of his personal information, including the whereabouts and movements of his family. So he is completely trapped in this cyber web and has to immediately start figuring out how he can free himself from that. So that was the big challenge of updating the series, is figuring out the whole cyber infrastructure of this brave new world that we're in.
Let's go into that a little bit more and open that up. You mentioned the challenges to the process that you undertook to bring this 20th century series into the 21st. So as a writer, how did your process, your research process, your writing process change between the first Pascual March novel, Lying, Crying, Dying, and this current one, Kill Chain?
Well, the research for the original three books was the old-fashioned kind of research. I went and physically visited the locales and tramped around the streets and tracked people down and pestered people on the phone and tried to get interviews and talked to people, and did all of the real world research that authors have always done. Talk to people, walk around, take pictures, take notes, and figure out what's going on in a place. What does it look like? So it was on-site, real-world research for those first three books. For one of those books, I made 2 trips to Spain, and did the research the old-fashioned way. For the second phase of the series, starting with Kill Chain, most of my research was done online or via email. First of all, there was just a great deal of education that I had to, self-education I had to undertake to learn about all this stuff. So not only online resources, but also went to the library, checked out everything I could find on this. And I spent a lot of time simply educating myself about the cyber world, about hacking, about cybersecurity, all of that thing, that kind of thing. Now, as for actually writing the book, to me, part of the attraction of this type of thriller is the setting. You can't really write a very, I suppose somebody might be able to do it. I couldn't write a very convincing thriller about a guy sitting at a computer keyboard. So I had to find a way to make the action kinetic, to make the story more kinetic and put it into the real world. Thugs will be thugs, and it's all online now, but still, if you cross somebody, they're going to come after you in person in the physical world. And that, of course, is the real suspense element of a suspense novel. So I knew Pascual was going to be in the real world. Where? The story that I worked out had him going around to various tax havens and setting up shell companies and bank accounts. In particular, the British Virgin Islands, Malta, Cyprus, Luxembourg, Geneva. Number one, I couldn't afford to fly to all those places. Number two, the online resources now for that type of research are amazing. I spent a lot of time on Google Earth. Google Earth is an amazing resource. Now, you can't just depend on Google Earth. If you want to set a scene in Geneva, and I had been to Geneva actually years before, but I set some of the scenes in this book in places where I'd never been. I've never been to Cyprus, never been to Nicosia. I wanted to set a scene in Nicosia. So you have to get a look at the place. I did that on Google Earth. Figured out, where does this street go? What's up this street? What's that down that street? Where does he go now? What's the look of the place? But you have to get more than the look of the place. You have to get the feel of the place and the smell and the sound and all that. So in addition to that in addition to Google Earth, I spent a lot of time reading local newspapers, finding first-person travel accounts, reading police reports, things like that. You have to look for all the media you can find. Local newspapers are great. Where are the crimes taking place in this Nicosia? Where are the good neighborhoods and the bad neighborhoods? Where are the slums? Where are the police stations located? All that kind of thing. That takes a lot of research. Fortunately, a lot of it is available online. The resources that are available online are amazing. And I also had some real life consultants, people that I asked questions of via email generally, and ran chapters past them as I got them done for their critique. So you have to submit it all to the real world, the discipline of fact at some point. But yeah, the amount of online resources that are available for research now, the amount is amazing compared to what there was back in the 90s when I did the original rebooks.
All right. How does a creature of Pascual's vintage adapt to today's climate? I guess I should rephrase that. How does a pre-digital operator survive in the digital jungle?
He gets help. One of the first things Pascual does in Kill Chain is he goes and he finds a computer expert to help him. And he pays him a lot of money to get to work on his case. Who has hacked me? How did they do it? How can I escape this? What's going on here? And of course, he has to take some real world precautions. I think part of the interest of Kill Chain is how you defeat this pervasive and invasive cyber invasion by taking it to the streets. You turn off your phone, leave your phone behind, and you go out into the street and you find somebody to deliver a message verbally that can't be hacked. You use old-fashioned tradecraft. You make sure you're not followed. You go physically to the office of your cybersecurity expert and you knock on his door and you say, I've got a problem. Can you help me? So Pascual has to bring back all of his old real-world tradecraft, making sure he's not followed, making sure nobody's listening, just to be able to access the help he needs to defeat this cyber invasion that has come down upon him. So that to me was a really interesting aspect of the book, was to make it physical, take it back into the real world. And, that fits the logic of the story. And it also makes it more kinetic, more cinematic.
Okay. Now, the threat landscape that you described in your previous books, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, this is something, it was post-Cold War, post-fall of the wall, of a kind of transmogrification of terror into organized crime. How did that threat landscape then change to what it is today? And how do you view the threat landscape that you have dropped Pascual into today?
Well, I think the criminals are always ahead of everybody else in adopting and adapting new technologies. And we've seen that in the cyber world. Criminals are always on the lookout for a way to make money illicitly. And so the new technological landscape became a threat landscape as criminals and spooks, intelligence agents, criminals and security people are the ones to first adopt a new technology and adapt it to their ends. And that happened very fast with the new technologies that came along in the 90s. The military, the Defense Department was behind a lot of innovation in the technological world, and the criminal world, as I say, was very innovative. So that is what mutated, this promising new technological world that has enhanced our lives in so many positive ways. It's what also transformed it into a threatscape. The incentive of making vast amounts of money illicitly is a tremendous driver of innovation and always has been. And also warfare, the desire to always be one up on the other guys over the hill is also a tremendous driver of innovation. Malfeasance is a tremendous incentive for any kind of innovation. So I think that's what happened. A book that I read in the research for Kill Chain that I am recommending to everybody is a book called Future Crimes by a guy named Mark Goodman. It's 3 or 4 years old now, so obviously things are changing very fast, but I think the essential elements of that book remain unchanged. He just lays out in that book how every aspect of the cyber world has been exhaustively investigated and exploited by bad actors. That book, first of all, made my hair stand on end and made me go and revise all my passwords and make them stronger. And secondly, it just gave me a vision, really, for the first time, of how pervasive our vulnerabilities are in this new world. It made me paranoid, and paranoia is a great element of a suspense novel. So I was able to make that authentic. Great book, Future Crimes by Mark Goodman.
All right. Pascual is a chameleon. I mean, he's not just physically a chameleon. You always make a point in your books of saying how he can pass for half a dozen nationalities, which is why he had his old job. But he's also a linguistic chameleon. He's a polyglot. He's a translator. He has not just the gift of the gab, he has the actual gift of human languages. And you have this great onomatopoeic soup, this broth that you have running throughout your books, where you just drop in words or even whole sentences and just sprinkle it in this language, that language, and so on and so forth, which is delicious. I mean, it really adds a lot of verbal color. But speaking to that, what is the role of language in this series, particularly now that you've brought it into an age where it seems like machine languages are supplanting human ones in importance?
Well, I always viewed Pascual as a multicultural, multilingual character, partly as a reflection of myself. I myself do speak all the languages that Pascual speaks, not quite as well as I have him speaking them, because he's a bit of little bit of a larger than life anti-hero, but I gave him a plausible background in the book for speaking all those languages. I have him as being, he's a Catalan raised in Barcelona, first of all, so he'll be bilingual in Catalan and Spanish. He spent parts of his adolescence in Brooklyn, where he acquired English as an adolescent, and university years in Paris, also part of his childhood in Paris. So those four, Catalan, Spanish, English, and French, he speaks at a native level because he lived there as a child or adolescent. In his travels as a young man, he acquired German and Arabic, which he speaks fluently, if not at a native capability. He also has the ear. Some people have the ear. They are able to acquire languages without an accent. I also have that ear. I have, at least for brief periods, passed as a native speaker, certainly in French and Spanish. Very briefly once in Arabic, but the jig was up after a couple of sentences. So if some people have the ear and they can learn languages without an accent or nearly without an accent. So that's the type of guy I am. Modestly, again, not quite to the extent Pascual is, but I think he's a plausible character. There are people with that kind of linguistic ability, and I knew I wanted to make that a central feature of his character because that allows him to do the things that I wanted him to do in the book. It makes him a tremendous subversive, for one thing, and potentially a very useful agent for any number of causes. So that's the background I gave him, a background that endowed him with 4 languages at native capability and 2 others at near native ability. And that continues, I think, to be valuable in the modern world. Machine language isn't quite there yet. Google Translate isn't all that good yet, if I do say so myself. I am a professional translator, so obviously I have a stake in resisting the idea that we're all going to be replaced by machine language. We may be someday, but they're not there yet. So certainly, as of the year 2020, we still need real life translators and interpreters and people, spies. We're always going to need spies, informants and so forth who can pass for people of another nationality. I think that's going to endure. So that's what Pascual is. He is a chameleon, a linguistic chameleon, and he can pass for a wide variety of nationalities, and that's going to continue to be a valuable feature of his abilities, his capacities.
Will Pascual be returning soon?
Well, I've just completed a sequel to Kill Chain, so he's back for at least one more, and then one projected after that. So I've projected 3 sequels to bring the total of the series to 6, and if there's demand after that, I will meet the demand. And as you're fond of pointing out, it's a great time to be a writer with all of the things that are going on in the world descending into chaos, particularly in the Mediterranean area. Another thing I wanted to do with the Pascual series was write about the Mediterranean, originally Spain, which is where Pascual was born and resided for the first 3 books. It's a country that I'm very interested in. I lived in Barcelona for a year. It's a city I love very much. I want to set more books there. But I also want to take Pascual all over the Mediterranean because it's a cultural area that I find fascinating. I have traveled all around the Mediterranean, North Africa and the Middle East, in addition to Southern Europe. Kill Chain takes Pascual all over the Mediterranean as far as Cyprus, and the sequel, which I just completed, takes him to Greece and Turkey. So perhaps we will complete a grand tour of the Mediterranean, returning by way of Egypt and North Africa and Libya, where things are happening apace. Not sure yet, but I think that's going to be Pascual's area of operations for the foreseeable future, is the Mediterranean, particularly the Eastern Mediterranean in the near future.
Sounds good. What's the name of the sequel?
The name of the sequel is called Black Chain, a play on blockchain, the technology underlying cryptocurrency. So Black Chain has just been finished. I'm letting it sit for a week or 2 just to get away from it, and then I'll go back and revise it and get it to the publisher in a few weeks.
There you have it, folks. Author Dominic Martell, author of the Pascual March series, which is now in its 4th installment in its new guise and available now. Enjoy it. Happy reading. Look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam.